Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So the Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms spoiler season day 1 is wrapping up. Well, at least it's wrapping up for me. It has been quite a long day, and I just downed my second cup of coffee, which I very much need because I was up early making this episode. So if you haven't seen my episode on Xanathar Guild Kingpin, make sure you check it out to find out why I say all your cards belong to us. And also at some point, make sure you check out my episode on Trelasara, Moon Dancer, a Selesnya. And if you saw my last episode, you know exactly why I'm highlighting that it's Selesnya, not Simic, Commander. Yeah, I definitely need more coffee. Anyways, today we also got something incredibly exciting, a card that actually reads Roll a D20. And yes, this is a legal card in Commander. So to find out what Treasure Chest does, make sure you check that episode out. But of course, watch this episode on what is potentially a new Gaea's Cradle first. So what exactly is this brand new exciting card and what does it do? Well, let's jump into it to find out. So one of the new cards that was spoiled today that many people are talking about is Circle of Dreams Druid. It's a 2/1 elf druid that costs green, and it has tap add green for each creature you control. Now, if that text sounds familiar, that's because it's also the exact same text on Gaea's Cradle. Okay, well, actually, Gaea's Cradle reads, tap add green your mana pool for each creature you control, but the Oracle text is the same. Regardless, Gaea's Cradle is a $1,000 reserve list card for a reason. This land is brokenly good in a ton of decks. Now, obviously, there's an obvious difference between Gaea's Cradle and the new Circle of Dreams Druid. Gaea's Cradle is a land, so you don't have to pay to put it in play, you just put it in play. Circle of Dreams Druid is just a 2/1 for 3 mana, but still, this is an incredibly powerful card. Essentially, if one of your decks either has Gaea's Cradle or would be running Gaea's Cradle if it wasn't so incredibly expensive, you should probably be considering this card. Because it really is just Gaea's Cradle, the creature. Now, that being said, this very well might be one of the most expensive cards of this set, or even the most expensive card of this set. I don't know. We haven't seen all the goodies that this set has, so it might not be at the top, but it's probably going to be up there. Like Gaea's Cradle, in the right deck, this card is easily going to be tapping upwards of 5 mana very easily. There are plenty of ways to flood the board with creatures, so yeah, that can get out of control really quickly and can tap for 10 plus mana in no time. I mean, you very well might just be looking at the best mana dork ever printed. Regardless, for comparison's sake, let's move on and talk about some comparable cards outside of, Gaea's Cradle. And the first one that came to my mind was Llanowar Tribe. Llanowar Tribe is a 3/3 elf druid with the exact same mana cost of green, and this one taps for green. So, unlike Circle of Dreams Druid, Llanowar Tribe guarantees you 3 mana. So, Circle of Dreams Druid does have a lower floor in that in the lowest amount it can tap for a green. But of course it has a much higher ceiling, and most of the time it's going to be tapping for a lot more than this. So perhaps a more comparable card is something like Karametra's Acolyte. She's a 1/4 human druid that has tap add amount of green to your mana pool equal to your devotion to green. So essentially for each green pip that you have on the board, you get that much green mana when you tap this. In a mono green deck, this can tap for an absurd amount of mana. Whereas Circle of Dreams Druid isn't dependent on actually being in a mono green deck to be effective. Though if you are in a mono green deck, these two cards are obviously fantastic to have in play together because, yeah, 3 extra green pips for the Acolyte is great. But again, the type of deck that wants Karametra's Acolyte is going to be more narrow than actually a deck that has Circle of Dreams Druid. And the same can be said for a card like Bloom Tender. Bloom Tender is a 1/1 Elf Druid that has tap for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. So with this, you're dependent on having permanents in play that have different colors. Or how about Hairbaz Druid, which has tap add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, or X the number of allies you control. Again, you are dependent on something more specific than just, having creatures in play, which a lot of decks want to do. So in an ally tribal deck, yeah, Hairbaz Druid is going to be better, but outside of that, essentially anywhere else, it's going to be worse. And speaking of tribal, of course, we've got to talk about Elf Tribal with cards like Priest of Titania, Elvish Archdruid, and Wirewood Channeler. Obviously, Circle of Dreams Druid is an elf, so it fits right into this type of a deck. And specifically in an Elf Tribal deck, a card like Priest of Titania or even Elvish Archdruid can be more impactful. Priest of Titania is going to tap to add green to your mana pool for each elf on the battlefield. And on top of that, it only costs 1 and a green. So it costs less mana, and it also counts your opponent's elves as well. And then Elvish Archdruid has other elf creatures you control get +1/+1 and tap add green for each elf you control. So again, essentially all your creatures are probably going to be elves in that kind of a deck, so this is basically going to tap for the same amount, and it also gives you an Anthem. And then Wirewood Channeler has tap add X mana of any one color, where X the number of elves on the battlefield. So like Priest of Titania, this can count your opponent's elves as well if they have any. Regardless, again, obviously Circle of Dreams Druid can still make a huge impact in an elf tribal deck. That being said, its impact is obviously a lot more broad than just elf tribal. So whereas these cards are pretty much stuck to that kind of a deck, Circle of Dreams Druid can go in an absurd number of decks. So actually in a way, the most recent card that this one reminds me of is Nyxbloom Ancient. Now obviously this is a very different card, but the impact could be similar. Nyxbloom Ancient says if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. So it's essentially a mana tripler for whatever permanent you're tapping for mana. Obviously that counts creatures, and Circle of Dreams Druid works well with this, but that's beside the point. The point is that Circle of Dreams Druid is a huge piece of ramp for a lot of decks out there. So like Nyxbloom Ancient, I could see the demand for this card being really high and the price being really expensive. Now luckily Circle of Dreams Druid is a rare and not a mythic rare like Nyxbloom Ancient, so we'll see exactly where its price ends up. Regardless, now let's jump into certain types of cards that can work really well with it. First up, let's talk about cards like Seeker of Skybreak, Curious Follower, and Scrib Ranger. Seeker of Skybreak is a very simple creature, a 2/1 elf that has tap, untap target creature. So yeah, getting a second use out of your Dreams Druid can be incredibly impactful. You're essentially just doubling up the amount of mana that it produces in a turn. Being a creature, Circle of Dreams Druid definitely has more weaknesses, but it also has other ways that it can interact with cards such as this. Now ironically, Curious Follower can actually interact with both Gaea's Cradle and with Circle of Dreams Druid. It has tap, untap another target permanent. So yeah, if you're in a deck that also has blue, you've got access to a lot of untap effects, including this one. But a different kind of untap effect comes from Scrib Ranger. It's a 1/1 with flash and flying that has protection from blue, and it says return a forest you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, play this ability only once each turn. Bouncing 1 forest back to your hand for an absurd amount of mana from Circle of Dreams Druid is going to be well worth it in a lot of scenarios. Now, of course, in an elf tribal deck, you're probably going to be running some other things that can really help out as well, like Copperhorn Scout and Wirewood Lodge. Copperhorn Scout has, whenever it attacks, untap each other creature you control. So again, this is yet another way to utilize Circle of Dreams Druid's mana twice in a turn. Speaking of which, there's Wirewood Lodge, which taps for a colorless, or it has pay green, tap, untap target elf. So yeah, that's a fantastic effect on a land for an elf tribal deck. But because I'm mentioning untap effects and very effective ones, I've gotta highlight some cards and combos. First up, Circle of Dreams Druid can easily go infinite with these cards. Staff of Domination has pay 1, untap Staff of Domination, pay 2 and tap, you gain 1 life, pay 3 and tap, untap target creature, pay 4 and tap target creature, and pay 5 and tap, draw a card. So essentially with Circle of Dreams Druid, you just need 4 other creatures in play to go infinite with this. You tap the Dreams Druid for 4 mana, then you pay 3 mana to tap this to untap your Dreams Druid. Then you use 1 mana to untap the Staff of Domination itself. Then you're back where you started with 1 extra floating green mana. So you do that as many times as you need to, making a trillion mana or so. You of course then can gain basically infinite life, tap down all your opponent's creatures, and draw your entire deck. And there are plenty of ways to win from there. And then there's Umbral Mantle, which has equipped creature has pay 3 and untap. This creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So you just need 3 other creatures on top of your Circle of Dreams Druid in play for this to work. You tap for 4, you pay 3 to untap it gets +2/+2, and you've got 1 extra mana. So Circle of Dreams Druid basically becomes infinitely large, and you've got infinite mana. And then Sword of the Parents has a lot of text, but the important part is pay 3, you may tap or untap equipped creature. So again, if you're just tapping your Circle of Dreams Druid for 4 mana, congratulations, you've got infinite mana. But of course, outside of these singular cards that combo with Circle of Dreams Druid, there are a lot of other combos that you can make with it. For example, Temur Sabertooth and Lightning Greaves. Temur Sabertooth has pay 1 and a green. You may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. And then Lightning Greaves gives equipped creature haste and shroud and has equipped 0. Your Dreams Druid needs to tap for 6 mana for this to work. You tap for 6, you use 2 of that mana to bounce it back to your hand, then use 3 mana to recast it. Then you equip your Lightning Greaves for free, and then you can tap it again for mana. Then you do this as many times as you need to gain infinite mana. Obviously, if you've got any creatures in play that have ETBs, you can utilize those with Temur Sabertooth as well once you've got infinite mana. So have fun with that. Or how about a previously mentioned card with Seeker of Skybreak? This one comes with Illusionist Bracers, which says, whenever an ability of a equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. So we put the Bracers on the Seeker of Skybreak, and then when she taps to untap target creature, we can untap 2 creatures. So obviously we untap our Circle of Dreams Druid, and we also have Seeker of Skybreak untap herself. So we don't even need a specific number of creatures in play to actually make this work. And the last one I'm going to highlight is somewhat strange, but pretty awesome with Ashaya Soul of the Wild. Ashaya has non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. And then Scrib Ranger, which I highlighted earlier again, says return a forest you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, play this ability only once each turn. So the combo is kind of strange, but here's how it works. So let's say we tap our Circle of Dreams Druid for 3 mana. With Ashaya in play, all of our creatures, including Scrib Ranger, are technically forests. So we have Scrib Ranger return herself back to our hand because, she's a forest. And then by doing that, we untap our Circle of Dreams Druid. With 2 of the 3 mana that we have in our mana pool, we recast Scrib Ranger. So we're at the exact same spot that we were, but with 1 extra mana in our mana pool. So then we can do this over and over again as many times as we want. Although Scrib Ranger does say play this ability only once each turn, that's a different Scrib Ranger each time, technically because we're recasting it. Regardless, yeah, there are a lot of things that can combo with a creature that is essentially Gaea's Cradle. Not surprising, I know. But now let's move on and talk about what commanders might potentially want Circle of Dreams Druid in their deck. Actually, the answer is, well, a ton of them, okay? I'm not going to go through every single commander because, yeah, there's a lot of decks out there that really want a Gaea's Cradle, even if it's a creature, in their deck. And actually, there's quite a few commanders out there that might even prefer it to be a creature in their deck. So yeah, let's jump into it and highlight a few of them. First up, let's talk about Samut, Voice of Dissent. Samut is a 3/4 human warrior with flash, double strike, vigilance, and haste, and other creatures you control have haste. By paying a white, you can tap her to untap another target creature. So first off, our Circle of Dreams Druid having haste essentially just allows us to net mana on playing the card most of the time. On top of that, simply by paying 1 white mana, we can untap our Circle of Dreams Druid and then tap it again. So yeah, that can be pretty impactful, especially in a deck like Samut that wants to run a lot of powerful creatures. Next up, how about Derevi, Imperial Tactician? Derevi is a 2/3 bird wizard with flying that has, when it enters the battlefield or a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may tap or untap target permanent. And by paying 1 green, white, blue, you put Derevi onto the battlefield from the command zone. Now, obviously, Derevi can be built with a lot of different types of decks, including stacks, but that's not what we're going to be talking about right now. A Derevi deck has the potential to untap your Circle of Dreams Druid an absurd number of times. Next up, though, let's talk about Spirit of the Orochi, a 7/7 spirit that costs 6 green. It has tap, untap all forests and all green creatures, place ability only once each turn. So even though we can only do this once each turn, it's still going to be an incredibly impactful effect. And actually, Circle of Dreams Druid can be a fantastic way to work to get your commander out pretty early. And again, this is an 8 mana commander, so you're going to want to ramp really quickly. Next up, how about a deck that goes in a different direction with an elf tribal deck with Azuri Renegade Leader? Azuri is a 2/2 elf warrior that has pay green, regenerate another target elf. And by paying 2 green, elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. Again, as I mentioned before, Circle of Dreams Druid being an elf can be fantastic in an elf tribal build. If someone tries to board wipe, you can essentially just tap your Dreams Druid and just pay to regenerate every single one of your elves. Or if you're trying to finish out the game, you can just tap and then overrun multiple times with it as well. So yeah, pretty much any elf tribal deck, including something like Marwyn the Nurturer, can really utilize this card. I'm not going to go through every single elf tribal commander and what they do, but yeah, elf tribal players out there rejoice because you've got yet another fantastic piece for your deck. One more elf tribal commander that I will talk about though in a little more detail is for a different reason with Rhys the Redeemed. He's a 1/1 Elf Warrior for a Selesnya that has pay 2 and a Selesnya and tap, create a 1/1 green and white Elf Warrior creature token. And by paying 4 Selesnya, you tap, and for each creature token you control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So yeah, Reese can definitely be built Elf Tribal, but it can also be, just a go-wide token deck. And with the absurd number of token creatures that you're going to be making, you can make an absurd amount of mana with Circle of Dreams Druid. So yeah, if you've got a token deck that's got green like Trostani Selesnya's Voice, of course the Circle of Dreams Druid can fit right in. But as I mentioned before, if a deck can essentially cast the card, it's probably going to want it. Green is a somewhat restrictive casting cost, but there are plenty of decks that can make that work. But now it's time for me to wrap things up and give you my final thoughts on Circle of Dreams Druid. I'm definitely stating the obvious here, but this is Gaea's Cradle on a creature, and I don't think very much else really needs to be said. This is an incredibly powerful card with a very relevant creature type to a lot of decks. And like Gaea's Cradle, there are plenty of ways to use and abuse this card and go infinite really easily with just 1 or 2 other cards. So yeah, although I never thought I'd see the day when I saw Gaea's Cradle on a creature, I also never thought I'd see the day where we've got roll a d20 on a card either, and we've already seen that too. So yeah, a lot of crazy things are happening today. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.